I get the both of you. I wasn't sure.
We're a package
It's
today.
like double trouble. Yay. So why don't you guys share with us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where you come from, because it's really important for me that you're here because of what you were doing before and what you're doing now. So
Sure.
go ahead and it's all yours.
Sure, absolutely. Do you want to
Yep,
go?
go ahead. Yep.
So my name is Patrick. This is my lovely wife, Heather. We actually met in pharmacy school. And the long story short is we fell in love. We got married while I was still in my last year. Heather was a year ahead of me in class. Graduated, became pharmacists. We're both working in the hospital setting for the first few years of our career. I was studying in cardiac intensive care, so a cardiac pharmacist, a heart pharmacist, and Heather specialized in nephrology and pulmonary, so lungs and kidneys. Then we went on to have a couple of children and decided at that point, you know what, we don't want to live in the city. We'd prefer not to raise them in the city. So we followed a dream of mine, and I'd always wanted to be a small town community pharmacist. I had a mentor when I was growing up, and he was the pharmacist in Drayton Valley. His name was Laurie Tachek. He was the man that I wanted to be. He was a businessman. He was a smart man. He knew everyone in the community. He was just a delightful soul. And I looked at him and said, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And so following that dream, we had the opportunity to purchase a drugstore in a small town called Rimbey. And at that point, our lives completely shifted. We got into the pharmacy world. We bought the store. It's kind of really jumped out on a limb. At the time, interesting, and this is a whole different topic, we were not allowed to tell anyone where we were going because the old owner had a right of first refusal and didn't want anyone to know what was happening until the store officially closed. So we had to buy a house without being able to tell the realtor why we were coming. We had to put our children in school without telling them who we were or what we did. We had to quit our jobs, couldn't tell anyone. And so people thought we were in the witness protection program. It became a whole different story. We could talk an hour on that. But what happened, Celine, is that we started running that drugstore, and for the first while, absolutely loved it. We got to help so many people in the community. We got to watch our children grow.
And I
got to be that person.
My dream of keeping my hospital practice, because the small town hospital position pharmacist of one person was open when we came. So I was able to take over that position.
Absolutely. So if you're doing another talk completely around the law of attraction and what you create.
We've lived it.
Weave it in there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, literally it was, if you can imagine, as we're trying to decide, is this the right thing for us to do? We're sitting there and thinking, okay, well, is it safe for us to pull out, to quit our jobs, to move to a small town and to make this happen, just because it's always been a dream. It was always on my vision board that I want to be that pharmacist. And so we asked the question, well, what do you need in a small town to raise your family? And at that point, so Heather's a list maker. So we sat down and we made a list. What do we need to know that we could raise our family? We could be happy and healthy and be on the right track. And so we made a list of about 15 things. It had to have kindergarten to grade 12. It had to have a church, it had to have a swimming pool and a rec center. And then it had to be close to grandma and grandpa. And so we had just had 2 boys. We wanted to make sure that we were not too far up in the northern spot in Alberta. And so we wrote all this down. And then the last question was, well, what if we decided not to put all our eggs in one basket? What if Heather could possibly have a job still in a hospital pharmacy? And lo and behold, this is 2003. Google was pretty early, but we typed in pharmacist position Rimbey into Google. And lo and behold, the one pharmacy that was available for us to purchase had a hospital pharmacy that had one pharmacist, and she had just left to move to British Columbia to retire. And so everything lined up, and it was like there are no straighter arrows than pointing to this for us.
All the stars are aligned. We're going.
So we basically we ran the drugstore from 2004 until 2017, and that whole time, knowing that destiny had kind of brought us there, the thought in my head is, I don't know why I'm supposed to be here, but I know I need to treat everyone as well as possible. I know we need to heal and we need to grow and just be open to anything that comes that way. And we just kind of lived our life that way. But by the time we got to 2016, I was starting to get really frustrated with pharmacy, with medicine, and even with the community and the people we were serving. Because after 14 years of giving people the same medications, watching them come in month after month, what I was realizing was the medications were not actually improving their health. They were not taking it to that next level. Now, let's be honest. I mean, there are certain medications that will do just that. If you have a cold or you have an infection, we give you an antibiotic and you're going to get better. But if you have ongoing diabetes, if you have ongoing depression and anxiety issues, if you have ongoing arthritis, the medication is only going to do so much. And then the other side of the equation is you have to jump in and become the CEO. You have to take responsibility for those things in your life in order to get past this. But society as a norm, we kind of get this belief that says, oh, dang, now you have diabetes, you're stuck forever. Here's the medications. And as long as we keep your blood sugars under control, this is as good as it's going to get. And I got to the point where my mindset was, that's not true anymore.
Unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. If we start looking at what you're eating and we start modifying that, you can get different results. If your arthritis is completely out of control, there are things you can do to help get that back on track. And everything from being active, getting rid of the inflammation in your body, getting rid of the toxins and that kind of thing, changing your mindset. And also the thing that people don't understand is even forgiveness. Letting go of those things that you're hanging on to becomes so important, because you are creating some of that dis-ease in your body. And so as we got closer and closer to the end, I found myself sitting at the back door waiting to go into the drugstore. And I love my clientele. I loved and wanted every one of them to do better, but my love for the profession had started to slide away. And I would stand in the pharmacy when we had a dull moment, and I would say, okay, if I had to pick an antidepressant, which one would I pick? Because there's just something missing now. There's this hole. And in that same process, we had done a lot of personal development over the last few years and realized we had this gift for helping people get through those limiting blocks, those things holding them back beyond just medication. We could help with nutrition. We could help with the mindset around exercise. We could help with the release and the forgiveness of those things. And at that point, it was like, we need to do something different. And so having a good partner plays a big part. Heather finally sat down and she says, you know what? I need you around for at least another 40 years. And I don't think you're going to make it if you're this miserable. We need to do something different. And so at that point, again, we made another huge shift in our lives to say, what are we going to do instead and how are we going to get there? And again, lo and behold, what are we going to do? How are we going to serve people? Opportunities presented themselves, and the next thing you know, Fasco Health is born. We started out running it as a classroom setting, and we developed a 12-week program to help with nutrition, mindset, finding your purpose, finding out your why. If you know why you get up every morning, you get up excited. If you wake up in the morning and you push the snooze button and you go, oh, what's the point? Today's going to suck just as much as yesterday did. Life gets really hard.
Which
and
was happening a lot.
This was happening to me. I can tell you, I was living that. I mean, she's getting ready for work, and I'm like, I don't want to do this.
I don't want to do it.
This isn't fun anymore. I'm not loving this. I'm doing the same thing day in, day out, and not getting any different results. And so I had to live that, and we made that switch and started living the practices, finding my new why, finding what excites me, finding out how to be a cheerleader for others, finding out how to coach people, and watching them have their successes also helped me kind of grow through that.
Mm-hmm. So after we sold the store, he was under contract to work another year as part of the goodwill to do the transition. I kept my job at the hospital, but we started running these 12-week programs with people, which just gave a really different sense of contentment and happiness to be able to help people in a different way instead of just, here's your prescription and I'll tell you about the side effects and here's the lifestyle things you should be doing different. But, in that, however long we got to speak to people. And in the hospital, I mean, I would see people we'd call our frequent flyers, right? It's like, oh, so-and-so, they're back again. And yes, they have physical ailments, but we're going to scan them head to toe again and take blood and everything else. And we're not going to be able to find anything. But I know that something is fixable with this person. I know that there's a remedy. I know that there's a root cause. I'm just not able to tap into it in the box that I'm practicing in and in the knowledge that I had at the time.
Absolutely. And so I do want to make a disclaimer. There is a place for medications,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
medications play an important role in helping get you healed and back on track. But I will also want to lob it out there and say that you have more power and more control and more ability to make those changes that you really need in order to live the life that you want.
And there's lots of situations where you would be put in and a medication be given to you that can be avoided when doing preventative type work.
Absolutely. And so it's interesting, coming from a background completely of randomized, placebo controlled, double-blinded trials where you could tell exactly, if we give you this chemical, this is the result you're going to get. If we do this, this is what's going to happen. If you have this going on, we can change the acid levels, we can change your thyroid levels, we can do all that stuff. But as we got closer and closer, and once we had actually officially decided to sell, they brought in a new manager, and I had a little more time. So when the clients would come up, instead of just taking the prescription, I would say, okay, I see that this is a medication, good medication. It's going to help. Let's use depression as an example. It's going to help raise your serotonin levels. But what else is going on in your life that may be depleting your serotonin? And you just open up the question, and the person would say, well, I'm 47 years old. I got children at home that are struggling in school. They have their own health issues. In the meantime, my mother has just been diagnosed with cancer. My husband is in a job that he hates and he wants to retire. And I'm being pulled in so many different ways, and I just don't know how to do it anymore. And so that feeling of hopelessness starts coming in, and then the negative beliefs come in. I can't fix this. I have no control. I'm powerless. I'm stuck. There's nobody going to help me. I've got too much on my plate. I can't take care of myself. Then you do physical. You're getting fat and you're lazy and you can't get anything done. Why don't you take care of yourself? And the list gets so long, you find yourself sitting in the fetal position and you don't know why. So you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, well, you're obviously depressed. And I know they ask more questions, they do more. Here's a medication, and we'll see if we can get you some. But the bottom line is when we open you up to the questions, what do you have control over? Who's in control of your thoughts? And if you don't like the thoughts that you're having, how do we change those thoughts?
Because
what do we have to get rid of in order
yours,
to think it?
Right?
Yeah.
Like that's one of the big things is believing, starting to toy even with the idea that it's a choice and we can choose something different. Toy with the idea that things might be able to be different. This is not something, doesn't have to be my identity. It doesn't have to be this way.
That's right.
And for a lot of people, that's the first step, is even just learning how to imagine that something could be different.
That's right. And so I used to joke when I was in the pharmacy, where I stood at my counter in the drugstore, if you were to count it out, there's 42 steps from the front door to the pharmacy counter. And so I would stand at the back and I would tell my staff, don't put anything in the way. I need to be able to see people walking towards me, because you can learn a lot about people by the way they carry themselves and what's going on. And so it became a game for me. I wanted to try to guess what was on their prescription before they got to the counter. And I have a philosophy, and I wrote it in my book. I'll tell you a little bit about that. But I believe I see everybody as a tree. Now, if you've seen a tree out in the yard, you can tell whether a tree is healthy or not, kind of by looking at it. The trunk of the tree is that physical body that you carry with you. And so you can tell a lot by that. So is the person walking with their head up? Are they smiling? Are they excited? Do they walk in with their head down? Yeah, Celine sits up. Are they walking with their head down? Do they have a chronic scowl? Do they walk like their body's in a lot of pain and discomfort? Do they look worried and stressed and fearful? Do they look like they're happy and excited and they smile at everyone and they ask them how they're doing? You can tell a lot about what's going on inside by the way the person carries that body. The leaves and the branches on a tree, well, that's literally what you carry, your thoughts, your experiences. Do you walk through life being hopeful and excited? Do you walk into situations feeling like there's going to be some enjoyment and you're going to make some neat connections? Or do you walk through believing that bad things happen to you and that the world is against you and that nobody can be trusted and that you're not safe? Instantly, those leaves and those branches, they shrink again. And then the question comes up, how do you heal a tree? How do you keep a tree healthy? Well, we don't throw things at the bark. We don't throw things at the leaves and the branches. We have to feed the roots. And when you're feeding the roots of a tree, the analogy is those roots are in here. Every experience you've ever had, every thought you've ever had, everything that's ever occurred to you is constantly being run through like a hamster wheel. Am I safe? Am I going to be okay? Do I dare step out on the sidewalk? I remember when I got hurt and I got scared. All of these thoughts that run through your brain, those are the roots that are feeding your system. So if you have beliefs that say, I'm not good enough, I don't belong, I don't matter, nobody cares about me, I can't do anything right, it's not safe for me to stand out or speak up or even be present, your tree starts to shrink. And if those thoughts are going around constantly over and over and over again, that becomes your reality. And like Bruce Lipton, in that book that you said, The Biology of Belief, what that becomes the environment. And when you have a thought, that thought creates a chemical reaction in your head. And that chemical reaction will either dump chemicals in of love or they'll dump chemicals in of fear. If you have thoughts that say, I'm not safe, it's not safe, I don't belong, I can't do it, your body fills your body with chemicals, norepinephrine and histamines and things that make you want to run away. Cortisol is another one because it says this isn't a good environment, you need to get away. And yet what happens is we have those thoughts constantly all day. So your body lives in this soup of negativity and your body can't take care of itself when it's afraid all of the time.
Your body doesn't heal when it's in that state, right? Because it's expecting to have to run. And so then, you know, your health just starts to deteriorate.
Well, and you know, when you say that, what I'm really present to is also everything that's going on in the world right now. And like, just the things that we're bombarded with constantly through, you know, newspapers or media or social media, whatever it is. Just even seeing those images and having them come into your subconscious and without you even being aware of that, even that you start to replay over and over again. And when you're like constantly watching that, it's like reinforcing that fear and that stress in your body. So it's like now, like you said, right? You need a certain level of stress when something happens and you need to find a way from like
to move you away.
The bears of Alberta or like the tigers in India. But when your body's constantly like that, there starts to be a breakdown, right? So what's the process like that happens when you're in that constant state of stress?
Yeah, and I'll give you a great example from nature. If there's a deer and the deer's out in the forest and it's sitting there grazing and all of a sudden it hears some rustling and it looks up and it sees there's a coyote or a wolf it's been spotted. It sends up an immediate flag and says, I need to get away because I am in danger in this moment. And it trots off. All of its energy goes to its muscles, its lungs open up, its eyes dilate because all it wants to do in that moment is run, 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 run. But when it runs away and it stops and it realizes it's safe, 20 minutes later, it goes back to grazing and it's relaxed and it's calm. Humans, on the other hand, we have this frontal lobe that continues to relive these things over and over. And so in that moment, that having that little bit of stress to get us moving is important, but we relive it. And that's really what PTSD is we take that scenario that scared us beyond belief. And once it's over, we don't stop thinking about it. We go back and we say, man, if only I had done this differently, or if I had said this, or I remember when they were coming at me and I got all aggressive. And next thing you know, your heart's racing, your lungs are going, your body stops feeding its immune system and it feeds all of that to the muscles. So now you've got this anxious feeling inside of you.
Because everything that happens in here is in the now. Yeah. Whether it's something in the past or something we are projecting or worried about possibly happening in the future, everything in here is in the now.
That's right.
Right, because your mind doesn't know the difference between past, present, and future.
That's right. When you close your eyes and you think about it, it can't tell if it's happening right now or if it happened 30 years ago.
Or never happened.
And so your question is, what do we do with
Or never happened.
yeah, you can create all that anxiety just about thinking about what's going to happen later on. I used to do this to show people this, and we teach a class, of course, in Alberta here in the winter, it gets dark fairly early. So people would pull up in the light and it would be dark when they're going home. And I'd be like, watch, I can change your heart rate and your blood pressure just by talking. And I would say, do you remember where you parked? Because it's going to be pitch black when you get outside. And we run these classes at the hospital. Do you know the majority of people that hang out around the hospital are not stable? Did you lock your car? I know, exactly. Well, and so
Did
again,
you lock your car? Where are your keys?
but it's not even the truth.
Is there a light near your house? Or near
it's
your
not
car?
even the truth. But all I had to do was make you think that.
Yeah.
And did you lock your vehicle? What if there was someone in your vehicle? Are you able to get home? And if you get on the road, do you know how many drunk
And
drivers
people are like, stop.
And by the end of it, people are like, okay, I get it. We can create that anxiety just with our thoughts. And so to get rid of it is exactly the same process, but in reverse. When you can identify you're having a thought that's not serving you or is causing that, we have to ask ourselves, what is the truth about us? Is this actually a truth, or is this something I can control? So it's identify the limiting belief or the negative thought. Then we work through a breathing process to really help the person understand that you are in control, because you can take back control of your sympathetic, your fight or flight, through breathing. And so before we knew about SRT and all of that kind of stuff, we would just use a 4x4 method. So you breathe in through your nose for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then hold it empty for 4 seconds.
Because it signals to your body that you're in a safe place.
You are
Yeah.
safe.
If you are under stress or in danger, there's no way you take a deep breath, right? You're shallow.
Instantaneous calming.
Exactly. And then we'd walk through and we'd ask the question like, what is the truth? Where do you want to be instead? What can you control in this moment? What would be the next right step to pull you out of this situation? And we start doing that over and over and over again. The other thing is using a stop, something that literally changes your focus in that moment. So saying something like cancel, 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 or stop. Because we have a tendency to kind of get on that hamster wheel and make things worse and worse and worse. And it doesn't matter what it is.
Right?
Yeah.
You just pull it all in.
Intensity and the mass of it, you start to pull in more things.
That's right. And then we have to really look at what is the regular conversation that's going on in our mind all the time. And I love this, because if we get you on the phone, we just say, tell me what's going on in your world. And people will literally explain to you their limiting beliefs. Well, I can't seem to get anything right today. I never get ahead. It started when my father told me I'd never amount to anything. And you could literally, it's like, these are the things that you wake up every morning and you say to yourself. I'm not going to amount to anything. Nobody cares about me. There's not enough love on the planet. I'm going to run out of money. What if I lose my house? What if? And all of these things create that anxiety.
Yeah.
And so we do a real emotional transition or a shift. What is it that you want to feel? Because who's in control of your thoughts? And we ask that question a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the answer is, I am. So if I'm in control of my thoughts, what do I want to believe? And the visual of the trees, of the two trees, the tree of love, well, if I believe that I am a success, if I believe that I can get things done, if I believe that I do a good enough job, if I believe that I do deserve to be happy, well, then what does that change? If I believe those things, well, then I'm going to put more effort into taking care of me and taking care of my family. If I do believe that I matter, I'm going to be able to walk out on the street and say hello to people without being afraid of being judged. But if I wake up and I feel the opposite, then all of a sudden the world gets harder. Mm-hmm. And so as soon as you say, oh, the world is hard, then you automatically contract that. You bring more hard.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that was a really big thing for me to learn too, was that I actually live in a friendly universe.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because it wasn't my experience. There was nothing, it wasn't a friendly place to be. It wasn't a safe place to be.
That's right. And you make a great statement there. So looking at you and just kind of going on your story, you said there was a lot of trauma in your childhood. So you at that point there's a fork in the road. Yeah. You can go live in the tree that says the world is a lot of trauma. It's not safe for me to be who I am. I should never speak up, never stand out because I'm going to get hurt again. Yeah. And you get to live in that place of fear and negativity. Or you can go the opposite way and say, all of the things that have happened in the past have made me the strong and resilient, exceptional person that I am. And I'm going to take those and build on them. I'm going to take those lessons and I'm going to learn that I don't want others to feel that way, so I'm going to act differently. I don't want others to experience it that, so I'm going to explain my story and let them know there's hope. You have the ability to pick which one you go down. And in the pharmacy, we could see both people.
Yeah.
I would have patients come in that would be suffering, that just newly diagnosed with cancer, and they'd come in and I could almost tell how their healing process was going to go based on the attitude. Why is this happening to me? It's not fair. I can't believe it. I'm so angry. The stupid doctor, the da 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 da. And you could tell they were just exuding this fear and anger and frustration that the body can't heal in that feeling.
No.
And then you'd have the other people come in. Yeah. Yes. And that's hence the environment in your head and what you're living. And then of course, food and nutrition is a completely separate topic. We'll come to that in a minute. Exactly. But I've also had those same people that would come in and be like, oh man, I'm sorry to hear this. Like, how can I serve you? What do I got to do to help you get through this? And you'd hear the difference in their voice. They'd say, you know what, Pat, I have a really good feeling I'm going to get through this. I've made peace with everyone. I've lived such a good life. I love all those people that are close to me. And I tell them that all the time. And this is a part of things. I'm going to take this one day at a time. And sure enough, you watch them. It was never easy, but they had the ability to kind of pull through that. And when you look at all of the things around spontaneous healing, laughter becomes so important. Forgiveness becomes so important.
Forgiveness,
gratitude. Yoga now,
yeah,
because it really is important.
100% important, because literally when you're laughing, are you releasing cortisol and epinephrine? No, you're releasing oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine. And you're having fun and you're shaking your body and you're stretching your diaphragm, improving your lymphatics, all of that kind of stuff. Yeah. And so then nutrition becomes the other piece of that environment. A lot of times people don't understand there are certain foods that create more inflammation in the body, create more acidity in the body, that then exacerbate or make it worse. Those stress levels, that ability to be foggy in the head, to zap your energy levels. And so the second half of what Fasco Health is helping people get their nutrition back on track, which is making sure that you're eating as many vegetables as you can. The fruits kind of come in and out depending on where you're at in the cycle. Minimal carbohydrates, so almost no sugars and things like that, except for the odd piece of fruit.
Just touch a little bit on sugar because they say like sugar is worse than heroin. And when you hear that, it's almost like, how could sugar be worse than heroin?
Yeah.
Right. But it really
absolutely
is
true. So
take a look at what sugar actually does to the human being, physically, physiologically, emotionally.
Yeah. Well, if you're to look back, go ahead.
And part of it is its availability, right? You have to seek out heroin. Sugar is everywhere.
Oh, they even bring it to you.
Yeah. And so the other piece of that is that as human beings on the planet, we haven't been addicted to sugar for very long. If you were to go back just a few hundred years, getting raw sugar was really, really problematic, or it came from cane sugar and things like that. And so there wasn't much of it. It was very sporadic. If you go back 10,000 years, the way that humans ate was we ate really what was available on the plants around us.
That's right.
And so what you would see, so we call it evolutionary eating. There would be times of the year where there would be fruit on the trees. And so imagine, like, starvation was one of the biggest problems back 10,000 years ago. If you stumbled on a patch of blueberries and you weren't sure how long they were going to be around and you knew they weren't going to be around forever, what would you do?
Eat them all.
You'd eat every blueberry. Yeah. So you gobble up the entire field. And of course, when you did that, it might even take you 2 or 3 days or a week to eat them all, but you're not moving because this is food.
Imagine what your face would look like after that.
Oh, yeah. And
there was no mirrors. It was fine.
What would happen is your body weight would actually go up. Your body would take in all of that sugar and it would say, this is more that we're going to burn today. So we're going to store it. And sugar that's eaten in your mouth comes into your body, gets absorbed, and it gets stored as fat. So the sugar, any extra sugar you eat gets stored as fat. So it gets pushed in there. Now, the fruit's going to be around for a while, then it's going to disappear. And now you have to rely on either catching an animal to eat, or you may not eat at all. But if you were to catch a bunny rabbit, or you were lucky enough to catch a bigger animal, what's the diet going to be? Well, mainly protein and mainly fat. You're going to eat every piece of that animal.
And whatever
if starvation
scrubs
is
and
there.
shrubs and whatever you can.
So sugar would come in for a
Gotcha.
little while, and then it would go away, and it would disappear out of your diet again. And at that point,
process.
That's right. And in that process, your body goes into a place of ketosis where it naturally wants to burn fat as fuel. And the body burns very efficiently when it's burning fat as fuel. But the trouble is, in 2020, 2021, we never run out of that sugar source. And sugar is so cheap that the food industry wants to pack it into everything that you have because it gives it some flavor, it gives it some sustenance.
It's dense.
That sweet spot where you hit that peak and then it drops and then you want some more.
Yeah. Well, so the food industry drives you to that bliss point.
You guys, like I used to do a lot of events before, and there are some religions where they throw really big parties for children. And I remember being at an event one night and seeing, like, you know, there was like the ice cream station with all of the stuff on it. And then there was like the pop station, all sodas. And then there was another station that was like, fill your bag of like candies. And I remember just watching the kids as they progressed, right? And some of them would be like, they're wild, okay? Like wild. But some of them would be laying on the couches at the party or sitting in a chair, and they looked like they were like a drug addict who had just like gone, completely gone. And it really freaked me out, like that, you know, that it's like, it's a part of the lifestyle that we, you know, that a lot of people promote actually. And we're guilty if you don't give our kids candy.
And it was very interesting because, like, even in the pharmacy world, as we came up through the ranks and as we're learning all of this stuff, diabetes is taught as this progressive degenerative disease where you slowly lose all of the function of your pancreas to the point where you're going to need insulin. Type 2. So the people, those that are born with it, the type 1 that have already no function and they're already on insulin, that's a different story. But type 2, what we deal with more as people get more obese and they lose their function, they make it sound like there's no cure for this. And yet what we see is if you pull sugar out of someone's diet, their body goes back to burning fat as fuel, and their weight starts to come down, their blood sugars stabilize, they get clearer in their head, the pancreas heals, and all of a sudden you can see things different. It was that Dr. Sarah Hallberg did a TED Talks around changing the view of diabetes. And now they actually run clinics. She belongs to a program called Verta that actually walks you in how to eat a high vegetable, very low carbohydrate, good quality fats and proteins diet that then can literally get your insulin and your medications down. For some people right off, for some to a very minimal level, depending on the amount of damage done. But that to me was a big eye opener to go, wait a minute. There is a different way to do this. And just because they told us there's only one way doesn't mean there's only one way. And so that started this whole process on what is inflammation in the body, what causes the acidic levels in the system that then cause the body to get more inflamed and more painful. Another great example is they talk about smokers having the most osteoporosis. Well, what happens in osteoporosis is, imagine all of these bones in your body. They're made of calcium and phosphorus, and they're big and they're dense. But when your body is in an acidic state, when there's too much acid in your system, which can be from sugars, it can be from smoking, it can be from stress, alcohol, any of those things, your body regulates it and says, wait a minute, we can't have this much acid. In order to stabilize that acid, we're going to pull the calcium and the phosphate back out of those bones in order to stabilize it and bring it to a natural pH. And so over years and years of this, the bones get more and more brittle until there's nothing left of them. And that's why they say that like drinking milk in a lot of cases isn't actually making your bones stronger, because you're taking it in, but it's not being absorbed.
You're still in that same state. So we work with people to help bring them back into a peaceful body, into a peaceful state. And then those nutrients that are coming in are going to go back into the bones and start rebuilding and helping them be stronger.
Well, I remember studying with Dr. Mortar, and he said something one day that really kind of opened my mind. And because the body is designed, because we're designed to survive, right? So the body, let's say, for example, if you do have like osteoporosis or something's happening, it will create a situation where if the disease is in your arm, where like your arm could come to a place where it would be amputated, if that meant that it would save the rest
Rest.
Of the body.
right? And
Yeah.
so that kind of, because it does do that, right? That's what we are. And so talk a little bit about that, because I think that that's really important too, right? It's just natural that your body would go and do this because it is doing its job, which is to keep you alive.
The majority,
That's right. That's
whatever it can keep alive, it wants to.
Right.
And we see that quite a bit when you look at different illnesses and things like that. Is the body, there's an internal program in there that wants to protect certain organs and things because they're vital to making sure that you're functioning. And then it kind of goes from top to bottom, from inside out, as far as the importance of what your body is doing. If someone is hypothermic or their body temperature is dropping, it will pull the blood out of the arms and legs, knowing that we could possibly lose those, but we need to protect everything inside of you and do that. So there's so many examples in medical world that you're absolutely right, is we want to protect those things.
Well, another example kind of on the opposite way though, is when you're living in that fight or flight, because we're creating it in our own minds, is that the blood and everything is shifted to our muscles so that we can run. And there are vital functions that are left at the bottom of the list because they're like, we don't need to digest food right now. We don't need to heal that injury right now because we just need to get away. So sitting in that state is working against the subconscious and your body trying to stay alive in the long term.
A saving grace when you do have something that shows up, right? Because now that it's there, you can actually look at it and say, okay, well, this came from somewhere. What's it trying to teach me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, I love it.
And another great example is how many people on this call, I don't need to see a show of hands, but how many people on this call find themselves getting up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom 1 or 2 times? Well, a lot of times what happens is that over time, we've lost our ability to tell the difference between hunger and thirst. And so when our body is actually thirsty, we get this trigger that goes, and we go into the pantry and we find something else to eat, but we're not drinking enough. And when we don't drink enough, your body then has to decide, where are we using the fluid in our system? You're up and walking around all day and you're moving and stuff. So we're gonna shunt all the blood to all of your muscles to keep you moving. But as soon as you go to bed at night, if you're dehydrated, your body says, okay, now all the muscles have shut down. Now we have to filter. We filter everything through the liver and through the kidneys because we've been short all day. So what does it do but create this great big bag full of urine that now needs to be emptied? And now you get this twig that says,
what happens in that sleep process?
That's right, because your body does all of its healing while you sleep.
Yeah.
So if you are not sleeping properly, you're not getting the active rest that you need, then your body can't do its healing. And that again is another way your immune system starts to drop away. So that's why they always say, like, the body is complicated. There's not one specific thing, but it's a combination of all of these things that keep you healthy and happy. And it's interesting, if you were to go and look at some of the data on how do we help people that are suffering from COVID, that's a big thing right now. The biggest things every individual needs to be doing to help improve their immune system, number 1 is getting all the sleep and rest that they need. Number 2 is drinking lots and lots of water, keeping themselves healthy. Number 3, vitamin C. Well, you can get vitamin C in a tablet, but you also get it from eating good quality fruits and vegetables that give you all of the other phytonutrients. One of those nutrients is called quercetin, which actually comes from onions and red wine and other vegetables that, again, helps your body. Because what you're doing is you're rebuilding every cellular membrane to be stronger. A cell that is strong can help prevent itself from some of the illness, and it can maintain. A cell that is weak gets taken over and destroyed, and the body says, we can't deal with this, and forces it out. So you have the ability to absolutely maximize your immunity by just sleeping properly, and vitamin D, just getting enough sunlight during the day. Yeah.
And
Each
laughing
of
and
those things,
being
and laughing. Yeah.
and moving yourself, taking that power back,
Yes.
choosing your thoughts and your feelings to come out of that tree of love.
Yeah.
Right? Turning the television off, not watching the news, not buying into that, and just being in a state of safety, that those deep breaths, that faith that I'm good in any given moment. Right now, in this moment, I am safe.
And the last thing I'd like to talk about from the safety perspective is trapped emotions. We are such aware individuals in that things that we've seen, things that we've experienced, we take them in and we visually see them, we hear them, we feel them. We have all of our senses that get activated. And if our body can't process those emotions, they will get trapped in different parts of the body. And those trapped emotions literally act like energetic balls. They get stuck inside there. And so if you have an ache or a pain or an injury that you can't quite put your finger on, or it's just continuing to get worse and worse after an injury, there can be some emotional residual or residence that's still sitting there that needs to get moved. And the neat thing right now, I'm in the process of doing a master's in integrative medicine. So tying in Ayurvedic medicine and shock resin, all of that stuff to Western medicine. And what you really find is if your energy, if all of that stuff is not flowing properly, it again can cause some of that dis-ease in the body. And so recognizing that and seeing that can be a part of it. And again, forgiveness and gratitude, some energetic work, some work with a magnet, some breathing techniques, all of that can be used to get you online. Add in the nutrition, the laughter, and the sunlight, and you're gonna do great in life.
Yes, I love it. You guys are amazing.
Thank you.
I love this. Thank you so much. So there is a question before I get to my questions I want to ask you.
Sure.
So somebody asked, Fran asked, I learned that sugar feeds cancer. And is that true?
Okay, so there's always a little bit of controversy around that. What I've seen in the information that I've read is that many cancers, and of course there's a number of different ones, but many cancers do live off of sugar. There's been some evidence that getting back to kind of a plant-based diet, a nutritional based diet, is one piece that can actually help eliminate some of that. But again, for some people, that if you've been on a high sugar diet for a long time, as you go from high sugar to almost no sugar, your body's going to go through a little bit of stress. And actually we'll call it a healing crisis. Your body has to transition, right? Because if you've been eating nothing but high sugar products for a long time, every cell in your body is used to trying to use sugar as its fuel source. And now you're asking 50 to 90 trillion cells to switch on a dime. And that can be a little bit stressful on the body. And so it's not impossible, but it takes a little bit. It can take up to a couple of weeks to really transition through that. And so people will say, well, I gave up eating sugar and now I feel just horrible. Well, that's because it's been there for so long. It's coming off of opium or heroin or something like that. You literally have to go through a bit of withdrawal. And then your body says, wait a minute, if we keep this up, we're not going to do well. We need to transition to what's available. And by providing good quality fats, then all of a sudden we can switch to that. So,
well, and the other piece of it too, is that sugars and carbohydrates do increase the acidity in your body. And so even just that piece of it kind of can contribute to any dis-ease or anything in your body.
Yeah. So that sugar being in your system increases the acid,
increases inflammation,
increases your body's time spent having to store that. When you take those sugars out of there and you replace it with good quality foods and phytonutrients, the cells that aren't cancer laden now have this superpower because they are built to withstand and to push out and to push back. Things like that. So it's really hard to say that one thing, getting rid of sugar. I can't say that that's going to cure it, but it's one of so many things that we know absolutely helps. Increasing your water, increasing your laughter, decreasing your stress, forgiving all of those people that you're carrying a grudge against.
Can be yourself.
Living in gratitude. You have to forgive yourself.
Forgiving yourself.
A lot of times that's a big one. And this is what we do. We literally help people walk through that process. because it's not one, but you become the CEO. And again, by changing those things, by upping your vegetables. The other piece of it is changing the mindset. If you have a story that says I can't eat vegetables, or vegetables are awful, or I was forced to eat these horrible things as a kid and I vowed I would never do that again.
I have a choice and I'm choosing not to eat them.
Let's be real here. Corn doesn't serve a purpose.
Well, I've always said that if I write a cookbook, the title of the cookbook is going to be 100 Ways to Make Vegetables Not Suck.
I love it.
As a kid, that was my thing. Like, I hated those. And I don't tell my mom, but we'd go to Baba's and she always had the mushy peas and carrots, but you couldn't have dessert if you left them on your plate. So when no one was looking, I'd shovel them all in and I'd go spit them out in the bathroom.
Can you make those vegetables al dente, please?
Yeah. Well, and so that's like, as a family, we've learned that is like how there's 10 different ways to cook broccoli that make it awesome. And it's literally just trying different spices and different oils and in butter and however you got to do. But it's if you have to get past that, I don't eat broccoli because it's awful, to what are the ways that I can eat broccoli that make it the best for me?
Yeah.
Because broccoli, asparagus, bean sprouts,
and
cauliflower, carrots,
a
whatever
whole other topic again too is just putting a positive intention around whatever you're eating.
Absolutely.
Right? The power of intention, instilling that higher vibration in whatever you're eating and drinking as well, is a whole other piece.
And that's so important. So doing grace, looking at your food and saying, I'm so happy and grateful that I have this, help it to nourish my body, to use all of the nutrients to build the best me possible so I can serve your body now as an intention, and it's going to look at the food differently. If you pick it up and you go, oh, this is going straight to my hips.
Well, it's not even it's going to raise the vibration of the food, which then you're ingesting, right? And so the vibration already, so then changes the chemical compound of the food.
Yeah,
absolutely. That's quantum physics.
Guys,
right
I love you. Thank you so much. I have one quick question. What do you think humanity, us as humans right now, need to level up in order to take us to that next step of what it is to be a thriving human?
I would say self-love and acceptance.
Yeah. And you do a lot of that through gratitude. So
and forgiveness.
It's literally taking that time, book yourself 5 minutes or as long as you want, but just sit in that moment and smile. And I always tell people, like, the easiest way to do it is think of something that made you feel love, whether you were giving love or being loved. And what does love feel like in your chest? And when you feel that feeling inside of you, then you say, okay, imagine that you've got like a volume meter. That feeling of love inside me right now, let's say that's an 8 out of 10. It's feeling good. So what if I just increase that and just using your mind, closing your eyes, pushing up to a 10. And when you feel like you can feel that love in your body, then you say, okay, I'm changing the measurement. What if it went to 100 and you raise up that level of love and you literally push that level of love out? So now that you are not just in your body, you're filling the entire room with love. And then what if we moved it from there up to 1,000? And now you're pushing out your love to the entire planet. You as an energetic being have the ability to do that just by closing your eyes and increasing your thoughts. You can do that standing in line. You're standing in line to get a coffee and you watch that person that's working so hard. You literally just look at them and you smile and you say, what does love feel like in my chest? Okay, now I'm literally just going to push love out to everybody in this place. And in doing that, instantly it raises your vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So I can feel the love from your heart space to mine right now.
Completely, right? It's like I grew up in the time of Care Bears and the cartoon, the Care Bears. They do the Care Bear stare, and each one of them had this emblem, and it was literally like pushing out love to those people around you. And those people that you despise the most, that frustrate you the most, need the most love. And so when you fill yourself with love and you push that out, you're just gonna be like, I'm not taking on your stuff. I'm just gonna fill you with love.
Loving you where you're at.
I'm not carrying what you're throwing. I'm just pushing out love, and I'm gonna be here because I get to control my thoughts. And if I control my thoughts, I control my feelings. And if I control my feelings, I control my emotions, and I can level up. Yay. And one by one, we just all level up.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. I love you so much.
Love you too.
My honor. Thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing. This is amazing. I love it. And Patrick, I'm blown away that you're going back to school, and I think it's amazing.